All right, good evening. The time is now 5:01 and it is time to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. It is September 18th. Thank you all for attending tonight. City Clerk, can you please note the attendance? Thank you. All right, so moving on, the first item is the agenda approval. Committee members, having reviewed the agenda, are there any objections?
No objections.
Not for me.
Hearing none, the agenda is approved. This time we move on to public comment. There are currently no members of the public that are in City Hall at this time, and I will check online. Looks like similarly, there are no members of the public online. Or we'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes. Council members having reviewed the minutes, are there any concerns or revisions that you would request?
None.
Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is going to be the discussion. We have the briefing on the Sunnyside Jail tour and contract. Captain Lynch or Interim Chief Lynch?
It's a nice name for a jail.
Sunnyside? Sounds quite lovely.
I go by many titles, so it's okay. I answer to them all. So good afternoon. I had the pleasure of making the almost 3-hour drive to Sunnyside, Washington last Friday. And Officer Mandry went with me, our PSO. She's the one that handles 99.9% of all of our jail transports and handles the court on a daily basis. So I wanted her to come with me to take a look at their facility. So I've always brought kind of doom and gloom news about jails to you guys, but I think this one is going to be one that puts a smile on your face, hopefully. So right now, if we have a inmate that's going to be incarcerated for over 30 days, and we have 5 of them right now that would qualify to go to Sunnyside one if this contract is approved. Right now we're paying anywhere from $140 to about $250 a day, depending on whether they need psychiatric care, medical care, whether they're in Issaquah jail or Score jail. Those being our only 2 jails that we use, any long-term confinements are stuck going to those 2 jails. We just had 2 inmates last week get a year each. So we're going to be on the dime for 12 months of their life for the next 12 months. Going to meet with the Sunnyside jail. They have a 77-bed facility. They contract with outside agencies. They have 4 agencies, I believe, that have guaranteed beds, that they're partners in that jail. The rest of the 11 to 12 outside agencies do not have guaranteed beds. They take them on a if the bed is open process, first come, first serve. And they request that we have people brought over there that are at least 30-day confinement to make it worth their while. So right now we have 5 that would qualify for this. I told you we were paying up around $140 to $250 now. This would be $62 a day. Yes. I thought it was too good to be true as well. So I continued on the tour and found that these people are given 2,800 calorie meals per day. They are given the internet, they're given televisions. They live in these pods of about 5 pods that they all live not in cells, but it's an open air with beds. They have 24-hour nursing. The only thing that they will not do is if we have someone that is on a Suboxone or trying to get them off of an opioid, we have to supply each month the actual prescription and get it over to them, because they will not go to the pharmacy and get it. So if it's a 30-day stint and we're sending somebody over with 30 days, they'll take them. They will give the medication, when needed. They actually also every Friday make a jail run to the west side of the state. And so if we have one at Score that's going to be there for a year, and say towards the end of October, if we can get this signed and we have an agreement, we can call them and say, hey, I've got one for you. And as long as it meets their criteria, they will come pick up and transport. At the end of their jail sentence, they are given a Greyhound bus ticket back to Seattle because they don't want them in their community. So the jail actually funds that trip back. So I was extremely excited about this. There are several agencies west of the mountains now that are doing this. Lake Forest Park just entered an agreement. The city of Black Diamond just entered an agreement with them. So where we stand right now is I have their template contract. I have filled it out today and sent it to legal for review. So I just wanted to give a briefing on this now, answer any questions. Maybe if I have questions that I can't answer, go find that information for you. But it's my hope that by the end of October that I bring this back to you guys and it goes, for vote and we get approved to have this be an option for long-term confinements.
Councilor Benson.
Did you, when you, on your trip to Sunnyside, did you speak to any inmates?
No, they did not want to speak to me. So I
What's
looked at them through the glass.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It does sound wonderful. That's a huge difference in cost. Can you attribute it to anything?
In speaking to the admin sergeant there that runs the jail, he's been there for 23 years, been working in that jail. And that $62 has only gone up $2 in the last decade. It was 60, now it's 62. They are able to do this at lower costs because their police chief says that we are going to be lower than anyone else, that we are going to keep our costs down, and there's no overhead when it comes to what they're charging, which leads me to believe that a lot of our other jails that we use are charging because they can.
So these other jails they're supply and demanding us, and they're purposely limiting the supply.
The price of doing business west of the mountains.
Okay.
Yeah. There's 3 jails in that county where Sunnyside is. There's the Yakima City Jail, Yakima County, and Sunnyside. And so all of the smaller agencies bring to Sunnyside, and they're constantly churning out people that, they're hardly ever full because they're doing such a business that on the backside, people are getting released and there's beds constantly available.
Councilor Watson.
Okay. I've got a couple questions, if I may. First of all, and that is the cost of transport. Given the fact that it takes 40 minutes probably from here to the SCORE facility versus going to Sunnyside, I'd be kind of interested in knowing, the cost, because obviously the $62 is going to save tremendous amount, especially if they're there 30 days anyway.
Oh yeah.
The return trip, I assume you said that that's baked into the $62 a day or $62.50. The other question is, I know when I book a hotel room, it has a 5-star rating. Is there anything comparable that we need to know? I mean, as far as cases that have come because of incarceration, if it's a higher risk for us as a community to use one jail over another jail, because I'm sure that there's stats out there or information. I just want to make sure that it's not just the low cost producer and then we end up with something that we didn't realize.
Yeah. I would have to look into that further.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that I have spoken to several police chiefs that have recently signed this contract, and they are thrilled about the cost. This is like the cost prior to 2020, because we used to send people over to Okanagan. We used to send people over to Yakima, and it was always lower. Somehow they've been able to stay at that pre-COVID level. I would have to look into that.
Okay. That'd be interesting to know and maybe reassuring. It sounds to me though that it's more favorable conditions If it's not packed to the max.
I would venture to say that our people that we send over there are not going to be happy about leaving Issaquah. Because it is a real jail and there are real gang members there and they are segregated by gang. So of those 5 pods, they're numbered with red numbers, blue numbers, red numbers, blue numbers for the pod numbers. And so your Crips and Bloods are separated. Your Serrano gang members are separated. It's not what we see at the Issaquah jail, more so closer to SCORE. Yeah.
If I may, one more question.
Yes.
And that is, the ratio of jail, corrections officers to the number of inmates, that would also be very interesting to know.
The day that I was there, there were 5 corrections officers working on duty, and 1 sergeant. And then the way that it's set up, on the pods are in a semicircle, and at the center is a command center with all glass, and that's where 2 dispatchers that are dispatching for several different agency police officers are, and they're looking through the glass into those actual pods. They do have a commissary, and they hold that as their if you are good, you can go each week to commissary, but if you break the rules, then everybody in the pod loses that right to go. So they're kind of self-policed within the pods. They said there's very little problems as far as getting along. They do have they pick somebody that's going to be there for quite some time, and they pull them out and put them through a training program to actually work there. They're free labor. They do all of the laundry. They cook the food. They send out all the meals. They do all of this stuff, and they actually have a separate cell that they go to that they are not in general population. It's part of their reward for working.
Right.
Yeah.
Privileges. Excellent.
So,
Thank you. Anxious to hear more.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for bringing Commissioner up.
Yeah.
If there's nothing further, we can move on to the next item, which will also be interim chief Lynch. So this is the briefing on peer support program.
Do you want to do the crisis
Oh, sorry.
and
Yes.
crisis center?
Yes, please.
Okay. So last Tuesday, we hosted a East Side Chiefs meeting here in the chambers. I had 27 police chiefs, the sheriff, and command staff here. And part of the program that we received was from a place called Connections Crisis Center. This is different than the community crisis centers that the levy just passed that we've heard about, where we're going to be getting 5 crisis centers within in the county. This is a different outfit. They come from Arizona. They have Connections crisis centers in Phoenix and in Tucson. So they came up to discuss the opening of a new crisis center in Kirkland. They're going through construction right now, and they hope to be open by mid-2024. They do a 55 chair model. So instead of beds, they have recliners. For the first 23 hours and 59 minutes when somebody comes to them in crisis, they are put on a recliner. The 2 floors above this, they have 2 16-bed units for long-term help. Their model is that they will never say no to a police officer bringing somebody in crisis. They will take them no matter how many people they have in their unit. They also guarantee a 5 to 6 minute turnaround from taking custody before the officer is released and on his way back to their city. So the way that they're doing this is it was there's 3 different cities that have gone together to start this: Kirkland, Lake Forest Park, and Bothell. They're going to open their doors to everybody that comes. Once again, I was thinking this was too good to be true. So we were in a room of 27 police officers and command staff and chiefs, and they put these people through the ringer asking questions about how this is done. They actually brought up a sergeant from the Tucson Police Department that is one of their crisis specialists to talk about how it actually is for police officers that bring crisis people there. So in short, I am extremely excited that we're going to have another resource. Everybody always says that we need a place that we can send people to. We need a place that has the resources that police officers don't. It's improved by bringing our mental health professional on a year ago to where she has different resources, but there's a limit to what she can do as well. And to have another place that we can bring somebody to, that we know that they're going to get services no matter what. It's pretty exciting. The model is they have a front door, which acts as walk-ins. Anybody can come, and it's more like a going to a urgent care. And they try to stabilize whatever the crisis is, and then we'll work to get them picked up so they're not just released back into, the community. Get them picked up and housed somewhere. If it's going to be something that is more than an initial 3 or 4 hour, let's figure out your crisis, then they are put there in one of those recliners for up to 24 hours. Once they are deemed that they cannot be released for some reason, then they can go to one of the 2 16-bed units upstairs. This is going to be something where if our officers respond to a crisis call and they feel like there's enough to involuntarily commit someone, they can go directly past our 2 hospitals that we usually go to and go to Kirkland, and they have mental health professional there from what they're called designated responders, crisis responders, that will actually sign off on the paperwork to do a 72-hour hold or longer. And they start the court process. They'll have them on staff there. One of the things that kept coming up was, how are you going to staff this? And I think that they're in for a little bit of a shock on not having enough in the workforce to do that, but they feel like they can do it in the long run. So it's going to be another tool in our toolbox that we can get people the help that they need instead of always doing the emergency room or jail.
Any questions?
I'm just bringing all kinds of good news to
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I was trying to see if I could come up with the slides because I'd sat in on a presentation from the folks in Arizona as well a couple months back. I'll see if I can find them and circulate them if you're interested in it. But it seemed at the time like a fantastic idea that would only really benefit the communities and the people who are having the crisis, as well as law enforcement. So
Yeah. The consensus in the room was that we were not going to tell the Seattle Police Department about it, so we could hog it to ourselves on the east side. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also my understanding too that they were going to use the programs in Arizona in part to guide the development of the 5 behavioral health crisis centers that are going to come into King County as well. So hopefully, in addition to the location in Kirkland, we'll see some additional spots as well. And if you'll recall, one of those specifically is set aside for youth.
Yeah, last Wednesday, I attended a Zoom meeting with King County Councilwoman Sarah Perry and her group that's doing the planning for the crisis centers that are going to be opening, the 5 crisis centers that were passed through the King County levy for this. I brought this particular place up and they knew all about it. They actually went the week before and did a tour of it. So they're working closely with them on how they're going to move forward on their King County model as well.
Thank you. The next item then is on the peer support program.
Okay, so currently, the Snoqualmie Police Department has no peer support certified officers or personnel. If we have an officer in crisis, or if we have a high stress incident that happens, we have to look outside to other departments' peer support to come in. So one of my visions for the department is to actually bring that in-house and have 3 people that we can rely on to be peer support. Last year in this country, 32 documented cases of law enforcement suicides, and then 9 attempts that failed. I am not a psychologist. I can do my best as a supervisor to keep an eye on people, but sending people within our department to go to the training so they can see the warning signs, the red flags, and bring it in-house and not rely on other agencies to do that, I think will lower the stigma of actually talking about it with somebody. They're going to be, when they says peer support, it's actually peers. We are friends, we're family, we work together. It'd be different than an outside agency coming in for an officer that, yeah, he wears a uniform just like ours, but I don't really know him. As of right now, we have the option to use outside peer support if it's a large incident, or the officers can call code 4 Northwest, a 24-hour phone number that's answered by first responders, and they can try to get help that way. So I'm looking really forward to having this program start at the beginning of the year, which means we have to train our people now. And by the end of the year, we will have 3 that are certified. We're going to send Officer James Aguirre and Officer Dave Doucette, along with our mental health professional, Stephanie Butler, to the actual training, and they will come back certified and we can start our own peer support program. We've been in contact with the Issaquah Police Department's peer support, and they're working with us on how they started theirs. And they've been awesome. Recently, when we had one of our officers suffered a medical emergency while on duty and was transported to the hospital up in the Highlands, we didn't even ask for it, but half of our department sitting in the waiting room, and an Issaquah officer shows up and introduces himself as a peer support officer, and he went through everything that he could provide if anybody needed help that night or moving forward. And that's what I want to do to our own guys. I want to have that ability to handle any of those crises as they come, and to be there on a daily basis that people can go talk to. So I was really excited to tell you guys about that, and it's something that I truly believe in, and I'm looking forward to, by the end of December, having 3 that are going to start our program.
Councilmember Watson.
I think that's incredible. And I guess my one question is this something that can be shared with the fire department as well? I mean, both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
it won't
firefighters and EMTs definitely need this kind of resource as well.
Yeah, this is a resource that will not just be inside the city, the walls of our building. We can use that, elsewhere within the city.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's probably not a bad idea to have the school resource officer attend the training up there. I
Yeah,
think that's quite beneficial.
Yeah, he has a heart for it too. I mean, he's going to do great at it.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, the next item up is the jail transport van surplus and sale. And this is an item that's coming before, I think, Parks and Public Works tomorrow as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to brief you guys on this. This is something that I inherited when I first came on with the city. I found that we have a 2018 jail transport van that is not being used. It sits parked at the police station. I've done research on why it's not being used. I've spoken to several different people about this in other agencies. And I've spoken to Officer Mandry at length about this. There's a couple of reasons why it is laying dormant. The only time I've actually ever seen it drive, I drove it to Spokane with LT here to go. We loaded it up with evidence and took it to Spokane to deliver it for destruction. It works great for that. When we bought this in 2018, the officer that was using it only did court and only did transports from jails to court. They were going around to a couple different jails each day and picking up numerous people and taking them to the Issaquah court, and would walk them in. They would do court and then have to drive them back. We don't do that anymore. So one of the great things about the COVID pandemic is that the world changed, and sometimes for the better. And right now, we do not have to transport people from the jails that they're in to go to court. It's all video court. So when Officer Mandry goes to the Issaquah jail for court, she never actually goes into the courtroom. She's across the street in the jail, and she handles the jail by video court. Score jail does that now as well. So we don't have to pick those people up. We've even got a way of, when one of our warrant subjects gets arrested in Seattle and they're booked at the King County Jail, that we can send Officer Mandry, and she has a tablet that she uses to do video court at the facility. So we do not have to drive numerous people around. Remember, I said at the time, the officer that was doing this job only did transports to court and do court security. That's not what this position is now. Officer Mandry responds to non-emergent 911 calls. She takes theft reports with no suspect information. She will go to car accidents and with the officers and help with traffic control. She will respond to parking complaints, and it is not feasible to do any of those in a beige, almost 2-story vehicle that is not a police vehicle. It's not a, it's just not feasible. It's not one of those vehicles that she can do her job comfortably in. At the time when I first got here, she was having to get into marked patrol cars. She didn't have an assigned vehicle. Several months into my time as the captain, I decided to give up my unmarked Ford Explorer for her to use. So she has an unmarked Ford Explorer that she uses, and that helps with, driving to score. If she sees a crime in progress, it doesn't look as bad when there's an unmarked car as opposed to a marked car where she has to step in and take action. She is not a fully commissioned officer. She has a limited commission, so there are some restrictions on what she can do. So in closing, I feel like we have a very low mileage vehicle that is not being used, and that I would like to surplus this car while we can get something back for it. And I've got Don Harris here to come up and speak to the nuts and bolts of it and the technical aspect as well. So if I can bring him up to talk about the numbers a little bit and then answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Harris.
Good evening. I'm up here just to answer some questions if you guys have any. Pretty much all the data is in front of you as far as the mileage. It's got 27,000 miles on it. It was purchased in 2018. It's got a life cycle of 120 months, and currently it's at 61 months. So it's halfway through its lifespan here at the city, or at least with the police department. It's been documented that we did estimates to separate the equipment that we actually put in the van, because the van's about $35,000 when we purchased it, but there's another 32,000 of equipment and the prisoner compartment in the back. So we've decided to surplus it as a unit. We'll get more money out of it if we sell it as unrestricted or as restricted to other departments in the United States. So we've been getting pretty good money, much better. And if we were to separate it and try to keep the van for personal or irrigation or our water division or something like that. So we've thought of that, but it would take a lot more money to outfit the van with compartments and ladder racks and things to do that. So the recommendation is to go ahead and surplus it as a full unit and get more money out of the auction itself.
And it's my understanding that it will go to auction, but that we have been in contact with other agencies that are interested in purchasing it, correct?
Yes. Well, actually, when it goes on the auction, it's open to anybody nationwide in the United States. So we're not going to specifically say it's going to go here or there. So they'll be able to bid on it. The information will be given to the police department when it goes out to the auction. And then it runs for about 2 weeks to the highest bidder. And it's pretty much, as you see it, we have a minimum bid setting or what we think that it costs or would be, it's a $35,000 limit. So if it goes under that, it doesn't go. We sit down, we decide if we want to lower the price. So it doesn't automatically go if it doesn't hit the minimum bid. So I expect it to go for a lot more than that. So it typically does. A lot of our Tahoes, cities in Texas and around Louisiana and Kentucky, we've sold them all over the country, and we've got as much as $15,000 for a worn out Tahoe. So we've done really well on the auction. So.
Okay. And then, so once we get the money back, how is it allocated, since we wouldn't be purchasing? Because normally if we were selling the vehicle at auction, right, it would go into, would it be allocated to the future purchase of a different vehicle? But in this case, we wouldn't be redoing, or we would not be repurchasing a van, right?
No, I think what that'll probably be a finance question,
Okay.
but I think that when the sale, after we get the proceeds, they give us the check, we'll have to 50% of it in the agreement with North Bend they want half of it. So we'll have to put the money into an account and then write them a check for half of it. Typically the surplus monies for the fleet assets goes back into the place where it's the same line item as what we purchase typically. Equipment out of it's the, in our fleet and equipment line item in the 501. So, but in this case, it may go somewhere else. That's up to that's a finance question. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to give a little bit more about being contacted, I was contacted by the Federal Way Police Department that was interested in wanting to know if we wanted to sell it, and also by the Aberdeen Police Department. And they actually sent a representative up to come look at it. So that was within the last 30 days. So there are local agencies that would be interested as well.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, we'll move on. The next item is the more good news detective appointment.
All right, so as of October 15th, the Snoqualmie Police Department will once again have a full-time detective. We are moving Officer Chris Weary into that position. This is an officer that over the last 3 or 4 years has kind of set himself up to be the next detective. He's been seeking out training in investigations. He has been a member of major crimes for the last 9 months. I worked with him and gave him assignments when I was the commander of major crimes during that time. He does great investigative work. And, having him on that major crimes task force will give him the ability to go to additional training that the task force can pay for. I will be working with him closely on making sure that he is successful on this position. The department needs this position filled. And it's one of the things where it was the conundrum of, do we wait until we're fully staffed, or we'll never get fully staffed if we don't have a detective to help out with the background investigation. So we've decided to bite the bullet, and he's moving in there just in time to have 2 of our officers that are currently on FTO. Hopefully they're going to be finishing around the same time their training and move out into the road. So we will not have a dip in manpower, deployable manpower in the patrol division. So I will be most likely bringing him forward sometime in October, towards the end of October, early November, to be formally introduced as our new detective. So.
Council members, any questions or comments?
That's fantastic.
That's great news. All right, so moving on, the next item is relating to the range mining.
So remember I told you I was bringing all this good news? That's done. So I've had a crash course over the last couple of months in budget management. And one of the things that I learned was that we budgeted in this first year of the biennium that we were going to spend approximately $40,000 on the mining of the gun range. So every 5 years, we are supposed to have a company come in and de-lead the gun range. And that means the backstop, which I don't know if you've ever been in the gun range, but the backstop is made of chunks of rubber that's piled, several feet thick, that catches the bullets when they fly down range. And over the course of 5 years, they become contaminated with lead. So to keep people safe that are using this, we in the past have been on a 5-year schedule. For some reason, this is the 6th year. So we didn't do it when we should have last year. We also did not budget enough, because when we had our first company come out to give the estimate, they surprised us with oh, you have not changed or replaced the backstop in 15 years. So the backstop is on a 12 to 15 year cycle, where you no longer can take those pieces of rubber out and clean them and put them back for the cheaper price. So I'm just giving you this briefing right now, to where when I stand before you with the final number, that the shock of the number, won't be too bad. Give it a little bit of time to digest this and think about it. Right now, we were budgeted $65,000 in this line item, 40 of which would go to the mining of the range. The rest would be for supplies that the firearms instructors need, and upgrades for the range. So we've only actually spent $1,200 so far this year out of that line item. The first estimate came in at $98,000. I believe as we sit right now, we have one other company that's going to come out and do a walkthrough and give an estimate. We've reached out to numerous companies that are on the government list for this kind of work. And it turns out that they don't really do this kind of work. They do demolition. They do abatements of buildings that have lead in them. So we're going to probably come to you at best with 2 bids. There's just not a lot of companies out there that do this for police departments and that we trust. So like I said, as I sit right now, it's about a $67,000 shortfall. And that's with putting, if it's $98,440, we estimate the tax at $8,760, which would be $107,200. I apologize for bringing things to you that I always end up with, we have no choice to do it, but to do it. This is one of those things that we have no choice but to do this, because there's been times where other police departments, and I can use the Issaquah Police Department as an example, they have their own range in their department. They had a recruit that claimed that the range was unsafe because of the lead was too high, and they made a report about this to OSHA. Well, they came in and they found that they were not following the rules, and kind of like when a department doesn't follow the rules, somebody will make the rules for them. The state came in and said, now you cannot have this range unless it is lead free. To have run a lead free range and to switch our range over would probably be about 3 times as much each year to operate. So while it is a lot of money, it is cheaper than the alternative. And we can't afford, we're a year over now, we can't afford to continue on without cleaning this and having it de-leaded. This companies that we've used in the past, I mean, they come in with the suits on and the respirators, and they're in there for a week, and they de-lead everything that's in the range, including they de-lead the bottom floor of the building, because when we walk out, we're trampling lead through the hallway. And it's just one of those things that we don't have a lot of other options. So where are we now? I'm waiting for the second bid, and then most likely in conjunction with finance, we'll come up with a game plan that I come back before you and probably ask for more money. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Councilmember Watson?
Thank you for the update.
Councilmember Benson?
It seems to me that if we're using bullets that have lead in them, it's not gonna be safe for people to be shot by these bullets. Right? Wouldn't that be unhealthy? So the lead-free option, do they use just totally different kinds of bullets?
It's only for the range. They go back to fully leaded bullets when they leave the range and are on duty. So there's no such thing as patrol level bullets that are lead free.
No. I mean, in Issaquah, where they
When you go to the range, you take off all of your duty ammo, which has lead in it, and you have to load up with non-leaded,
which I assume is more expensive.
very expensive. Yeah,
It's double the price.
yeah.
It's almost twice as much.
And then they had to go back and redo the air ventilation system to meet the state standards to have that be lead free.
Why didn't you take care of this 10 years ago?
I wish I knew about it 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just as a question on that, using the non-leaded bullets, is that then any different for the officer when they actually have to go and fire the typical?
No,
No?
it is not. It is not because, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No. Would you like to come up and talk? Come on, Ellie.
I'm sorry, was able to speak with the range master in Issaquah about this issue, and they are actually considering trying to go back to lead. Because when they use their lead-free ammo on the range, it behaves differently when they're trying to sight their weapons.
Mhm.
And so they find that when they are actually then in a real-world situation, that their firearms are acting differently. It is also double the price for the ammunition. There are only 2 vendors that they made able to find nationally that now still are able to provide lead-free ammunition.
Thank you.
That would explain my past failures at the range when I had
That
to
would
go
do it.
there and I had no idea.
Not your fault.
The city of Black Diamond used the Issaquah range, and I remember when it went over to a lead-free, and my shooting was so bad that it didn't really make a difference. So
Let's get you off the street.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I've given you guys a lot, so I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to save us a bunch of money on Sunnyside and
Mhm.
those other resources so that we can
Help balance out
yes,
the
get that
range.
range fixed.
I'll be bringing this stuff back to you guys. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right, that was the last item on the agenda, so unless there are any concerns, go ahead and the meeting adjourned. Councilor Johnson.
I was wondering, we haven't heard about the parking issue on Frontier in a while, and I was wondering if maybe in a future public safety meeting, we could revisit that and see where we're at with that issue, because I know it was a problem for a lot of folks, and I want to know if it was still going on. I would assume it is, but an update on that would be great, I think.
Absolutely. I think Councilmember Watson has some comments on the jail situation as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Christensen. There's a couple things. First of all, I serve as one of 8 council members from the Sound Cities Association on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee. And our next meeting is the 28th of September at 7:30 in the morning. If you're interested, I'll send an invite out to any of the council members. It's a Thursday morning. Any of the council members are welcome to join me on that call. I do not know what is going to be on the agenda. However, at our last meeting, I did bring up the concern of the King County jail closure that's been proposed by the King County executive. In fact, Captain Lynch, Chief Lynch was also present on that call. So we're going to continue probably in that discussion. It's very encouraging to hear of the potential of having Sunnyside as an alternative. But I'll tell you, the concern is great among law enforcement. I had the chance to meet with the president of the King County Corrections Guild, Dennis Fulk, couple weeks ago, along with Mike Salon. He's the president of the Seattle Police Guild, just to hear their side of the story. I think what's important is that we have a balanced discussion between corrections reform, sentencing reform, and the way we move forward. Obviously, there's challenges, but my biggest concern is who's speaking up for the safety of our communities. And it starts with us at the local level. And I was a little bit surprised because the other 7 council members, none of them had heard of the potential jail closure. And so just trying to bring that that idea forward and have public input and also council input on how we move forward. But as well as, police officers, when we hear of police officers' frustration because they arrest somebody for crimes that were committed, they go down to South County and they get released. And we have prosecuting attorney that we've heard from that will not prosecute car theft, and how we've dealt with it as a council. They're all things that matter to us, especially in a small rural community that does not have overwhelming resources to deal with police and all the other costs that go with it. And I just want to make sure that we keep that top of mind and continue forward in finding a reasonable path forward. So, thank you.
All right. Well, since there's nothing left, the meeting is adjourned.
All right.